Welcome back to On the Mind. I'm Austin.
I'm Duncan.
I'm Bryce.
Or are you? Today we're going to be talking about bipartisan efforts to investigate just how far Russian influence affected our elections. So, Duncan, give us a brief background on intelligence reports.
Okay, so basically with the Russian hacking and interference in the election, we have very little hard evidence to go on. The CIA is currently withholding, for obvious reasons, the exact information that it claims definitively proves that Russia had a hand in the hacks. Now, earlier, during the lead up to the election, independent cybersecurity firms had worked on the DNC hacks and the Podesta hacks and had successfully traced those back to tactics that were used, that were very similar, I should say, to two known hacking groups that have at various times been purported to be branches of the Russian military and intelligence community, specifically the FSB, which is the elite branch of the Russian military, and the GRU, which is sort of their equivalent of the CIA. That was the most hard evidence that we had in terms of specifically, this is what we're looking at, this is what we think, this is how it ties back to Russia. Now, the CIA is claiming that it has much harder evidence, but of course, unless you happen to have a security clearance, which none of us in this room do, you don't get to know what it is.
And I will put a tentative yet on
that. Okay. So,
you're dreaming big.
So the one thing we have to recognize here is that this is particularly speculative. One thing that is worth noting is that no one is saying that Russia hacked into, even if you accept that this was a Russian hack, no one is saying Russia hacked into the voting database and actually turned the election. They're saying that they strategically basically did a counterintelligence operation in which information from the DNC, Podesta, and other sources was strategically leaked to the public in order to influence public opinion. So that is an important distinction here, I think.
Absolutely. Do you think the fact that this is a bipartisan effort reveals just how much anti-Trump sentiment there is? Or do you think this is a genuine worry about national security, Bryce?
I'm going to go ahead and say that it should be a genuine concern for our national security. Again, just speculating, like Duncan said, and it is fun to speculate, especially when we don't know so much. It's kind of like a guessing game.
It's like most people most of the time.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
I mean, like you guys said, it's not like they hacked into actual voter databases, but everyone that I know who voted for Donald Trump, and then many people I know even who voted for Jill Stein, nobody I know who voted for Johnson, but I'm sure there's probably somebody out there. No, not. I'm getting to a point. Nobody I know who voted for, or everybody I know who voted for Trump, thought Hillary was a criminal. Thought Hillary actually broke major laws that she should be imprisoned for life for. And maybe even, a lot of other fake news things like, the Pizzagate thing, which has been on the news a lot lately. What I'm saying is, should these hacks actually have been by Russia, then they had a very strong impact just because of a lot of the false information out there. And these hacks were obviously designed in a way to make the DNC and Hillary herself seem more criminal than is.
I would like to point out, though, I'm glad that the information was leaked.
Oh, sure.
Not so much because Hillary is Satan, but because I want to know more information. I believe transparency should be a public thing, especially when it comes to elections.
Absolutely.
I think that I'm just a little more curious about why the Republican National Committee hacks weren't released to the public. I think that's what is concerning most people right now that know about the issue. And I think that's why the bipartisan effort is bipartisan instead of just democratic.
Yeah, and I mean, there is sort of this point that you set aside the differences because let's face it, even if it's a very long way from being proven as far as the information that we have to go on, that Russia, specifically the Russian government, was responsible for these hacks. If there is even circumstantial evidence, which there is good circumstantial evidence that is at least a possibility, that's something you want to take extremely seriously. And I think it is, as much as we criticize Congress around here, I think it actually does sort of speak well for them that when something that is that serious comes up, there actually is a degree of bipartisan effort that's put into that, because that's a recognition, love Trump, hate Trump, whatever it is a recognition that this is a serious possibility that we need to take very seriously.
When it affects them having jobs in the future, when it affects their public image, then they start working together to figure it all out.
I will say that I'm glad John McCain is leading this charge. I respect him deeply, even if I disagree with some of the finer points, and in fact some of the not so fine points. I will say he's a respected senator, and I've followed his career since I was much younger, and I'm glad that he's leading this charge. Lindsey Graham's also in there, a respected senator as well. Plenty of Democrats, but you can chalk that off to party lines. Some of them, not so much. I'm just glad there are plenty of prominent Republicans coming out in defense of this.
Sure. Now, one thing that is kind of interesting to note here is that, in another context, John McCain, who was deeply involved in the military community, has a lot of applicable knowledge. One thing I think it is important to recognize here is that none of these people has anything remotely resembling the background that would be needed to analyze the technical aspects of this. So even though these people are leading the charge on this, everything that's coming to them has to be given to them by people who are breaking down very technical information into a format that they can then interpret and understand and work with. So there's an intelligence filter there that's very important that functions correctly.
Right. I will say that I've noticed Evan McMullen speaking very favorably of checking this, and he does have that background.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Which is important. I do believe that you're correct about this. It's different knowing something and then having to be spoon-fed it secondhand.
Right. And I mean, that's not an insult to any of these people, because these are, let's take John McCain, who was involved in the military before widespread computer use was even really a thing. Let's face it, he does not have the technical knowledge that's needed to understand, this Tor reroute from Russia opened up, 50,000 Bitly accounts and then used Bitly links to do a spear phishing hack on John Podesta. All of those things have to be explained to him. And I'm just saying it's very important that intelligence funnel not only operates correctly to provide these people with the information they need, but that information is then interpreted by them in the appropriate manner.
Right. I don't think even most of the people in this room right now understand what you just said, if I can be completely honest, Bryce.
No, one out of the four of us, and the one is the one who said it.
I followed you there for a second, and I'm not sure I understand.
So in layman's terms, basically one of the tactics that was used in this was to use link shortening services to shorten very specific links that were then sent to specific targets in what's called a phishing operation, which
I know what phishing is.
Yeah. So that's the layman's terms.
With a poll? Sorry.
No.
Yeah, you lost me again very early on in that.
Phishing is when you put out links that certain...
In this case, email links to pre-specified targets.
And they click them, and it routes them to virus infected or information gathering site.
In this
the
case,
oldest trick in the book.
In this case, what was going on is people were sending, these groups that were doing this were sending these links as emails effectively to people, and it would look like, for example, Google, right? It would look like Google was sending you an email saying, please confirm your account information because someone tried to hack into your account. And then they'd go to this link, they'd put in their real account information, and as soon as that happens, then the people who are actually responsible for the phishing attack suddenly have the valid account data and can monitor it without really any difficulty.
That's so... I can't believe they fell for that.
It's easier than you'd think, actually.
This is a very basic method, and obviously the things that were done, This was only one of a wide variety of things that the
okay.
cybersecurity specialists found. But, if you can get someone to give you the account data, it's a heck of a lot easier than doing a brute force hacking attack on an alphanumeric password.
But you are right, Bryce. This is one of the oldest hacking tricks in the book.
All right, shifting gears now, if you guys don't mind.
Do.
We don't really have any factual evidence, at least none that the CIA has released to the public, but we do have motives that we can see, that we can kind of try to go off of. So it's a no-brainer that the Russian government, specifically Vladimir Putin, would prefer Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton to be president, since he, as Clinton has said, is more or less a puppet. He's kind of a fool. We all agree. I think I can say on that. He would be easily outsmarted by Putin. Also, Clinton is accused of being part of an attempt at undermining Vladimir Putin's last run for president.
In 2011.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that was confirmed or not.
No, but he firmly believes it.
Yeah. So it's very possible that the physical evidence that the CIA has is a note that was mailed to Clinton that said, "You'll pay for this," signed Putin. And then after the DNC hacks, she got another letter in the mail saying, "See," signed again, Putin.
This would actually not be as funny as it is if it wasn't for the fact that Vladimir Putin famously dislikes computers and keeps everything in paper files. Because you can't hack paper files, ironically.
Unless you're there physically.
Well, yes.
That's old espionage. Well, I mean, you can talk about this all day. There was definitely bias in how those emails were released. There was definitely one party gaining more than the other.
Mm-hmm.
There was more information that could be possibly being held over the RNC's head right now.
That's interesting to think that if they have this information now and aren't releasing it, they could actually be blackmailing.
Maybe Pizzagate's a Republican-led thing, not a Hillary Clinton-led thing.
No, they found the.
It was actually it was like a Reddit user who started that.
It was a guy who wanted to sort of infiltrate the alt-right and show people, see, like, you guys are absolutely ridiculous for believing these crazy things. And so he was writing crazy articles so that people would know, you know what, we should check facts and such before believing articles that we read online. And then in turn, he just created this whole big thing.
So one other thing I think is worth bringing up is that, let's say, because, for those of you who are sort of familiar with this chain, the individual who was supposedly responsible for the DNC and Podesta hacks was a hacker mononym called Guccifer 2.0, which was a sort of a tribute thing to a Romanian hacker, Guccifer, who is, I believe, currently in prison. Is it Guccifer or is it Guccifer? I don't know.
I think it's Guccifer.
Anyway, that was the individual who was supposedly responsible for this. Now, of course, the intelligence community and the cybersecurity community is saying that this person is actually a front for the two groups, that, blah, 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 all that. But the one thing we have to look at is the intermediary that was used to release the emails, which was WikiLeaks, which I think I can speak probably for all of us in this room in saying that there was a time we probably did all admire Julian Assange quite a lot, especially, in 2011 when he released the State Department wire hacks, all that.
There's a time that has passed.
Very similar for me. At this point, I think it's difficult to say. One, he doesn't seem to have any interest in confirming whether or not the stuff that he's getting is real, because there were several, I forget what it was, but in the DNC hacks, there was some screenshot that supposedly showed a file, and it was like election. It was titled "Election Rigging" or "Dirt on Bernie" or some ridiculous. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was some super ridiculous thing that if you actually had it on a computer would be insanely incriminating. Whatever the case may be, I think it's important to look at the method that information is dispersed to the public, which is WikiLeaks, which at this point is obviously showing a very great degree of bias.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, I don't really think there's too much more to talk about unless we're going to speculate even more, but I think we covered all the major points.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, there's just too much we don't know, I think is what we can conclude from this. So let's just pick this up at a later date, I think.
Yeah, see if more information maybe... You know what? Maybe the Russians will hack the investigation into their own hacking, and we'll find out more about it there.
There you go. That's
Putin,
all.
help us out, man. Oh, great. Now people are after me.
That's all that's on the mind this week. Tune
Good
in
evening.
next time.
Bye-bye.